Hi, it's Phil again from Spokes Education, and we're just going to continue from where we left off with looking at our finances and going through expenditure line by line and seeing what to expect from your growth as a company. And we'll jump right into it. We'll pick up sundries expenses. So again, this is a bit of a funny line. This is kind of anything that doesn't fit anywhere else. This will be stuff like our teas and coffees. It'll be bits for the office. If we need new plugs and wires and all those kind of little bits that don't really kind of fall anywhere. And again, like I said, this we kind of try and factor in around about £100 a month. But again, that can change quite heavily. And you can see there that there's no real pattern. It just depends on what expenses also factors in. If we've done any travelling and staff members claim for petrol or something like that as well. So again, there's no real pattern there, but something you might want to think about. If you do have things like travel, to make sure that's kind of being charged back to the clients. If you're travelling to see a client, for example. Entertainment. So entertainment is again, talking UK here. You get a budget that you get essentially tax-free that you can spend on entertainment if it's for the purpose of businesses. We tend not to do so much of that, but what we have done in the past is do work dues. So last year we did a work due, went out for a meal as a team, and we put it through the company. And this year we're going to do, in fact, in a couple of weeks, we're going to do another work due, and again we're going to put all that through the company and make sure everyone has a good time. So again, that's something that you don't necessarily have to do, but again, as you build a team, it might be something you want to think about. Or if you're going out schmoozing with clients, if that's the way you want to do things, then again you might want to factor in some costs there to entertain them and to go out and win new business. We've got cost for equipment and hardware. So back 3 years ago, that was a fairly chunky cost as we were kind of setting up as an agency. So that's all the new equipment, laptops, furniture, everything that we kind of needed in the office. So it was a fairly chunky cost. Then going into the following year, that was predominantly laptops, additional laptops. In fact, this cost included we've got there, I think that actually must have been preparing for new staff. I think all the laptops we bought for the influx of new staff probably fell into this year. And then we had a couple more new staff throughout the course of the year, which is for laptops and bits and pieces there. But we purchased more monitors and more equipment for people at the back end of 2019. So that cost there was for the influx of people coming in this year. And the 2020-21 again, just ongoing. Again, we've taken more staff on. We've bought more equipment, so we've obviously got the AV equipment here. We've got more stuff in the office. We've bought conferencing tools for the meeting room and stuff like that as well. So again, it's a very flexible one, but essentially, we've spent about £20,000 there, about 20,114 to be exact, on equipment hardware over the last 3 years. And like I said, I think we've probably in our asset list, we've probably got 10 laptops, maybe more actually. We might have a couple because we've got a couple of spares. We've got 10 monitors, we've got 10 desks, we've got two large TVs, we've got all the conferencing equipment and meeting room setup, we've got a meeting room table, we've got all the AV equipment as well. So for £20,000, we've essentially got everything we need for a small agency of around 10. So, again, you can kind of factor that in, say £2,000 a head if you want to think of it like that. But again, that will be, I guess that will kind of grow as your team grows. You won't necessarily need a meeting room table and stuff like that as you kind of start out. But hopefully that gives you a good sense of what you might need equipment wise. Again, this is specific to digital learning or digital agency. Again, if you're a specialist agency, then if you're a video company, you may need to purchase higher quality equipment and things. But again, hopefully you've got a good sense of what that is and what that looks like. Going in, so we've got cleaning costs, and now again, when we were in the small office, we didn't bother with the cleaning, we just did it ourselves. And then even going into our new office, we did it, but it got to a point where I was like, people shouldn't be having to do this. So it's not they shouldn't be having to do this. It's I want people to concentrate on their job and not worry about it. So why not bring someone in to help us with that? So we basically hired a cleaner to come in once a week to the office and do what we want. We obviously still do our own little bits throughout the week. But again, that's a decision you want to make. Like I said, I was never going to bother doing because I thought we could do it ourselves. But then it found that actually the people who were in on Friday, they were the ones having to kind of clear up, and it felt it wasn't quite fair. So I thought the fairest way to do it would be to bring someone in, especially to do that job. So it wasn't the same people getting lumped with the job at the end of the week. But again, that's something to think about. And we've got VAT now. Obviously, that's going to change significantly again depending on your income. So you'll see actually we had a minus figure last year, and that's because we were doing loads of work for companies in other countries where we weren't charging VAT. So actually we were taking a lot of money and not charging VAT for it. So that's why we actually got a bit of a rebate. So VAT, again, you can start to plan that if you're VAT registered. If you're not, I'll talk about VAT registering perhaps in another video and the benefits of doing that. There are plenty of benefits of doing it. But again, it's hard to predict. But again, what you probably find when you are doing your kind of calculation predictions, you perhaps won't factor in taxes initially. VAT is something that's a byproduct of all of your income and expenditure anyway. So, that will kind of come out in the wash, as they say. But, like I said, it's probably not worth kind of factoring in a set amount. We kind of have a good sense of what money's coming in at any time, so we can kind of predict that and project a little bit more. So yeah, you can do that, but again, it's open to heavy flux. PAYE and NI. So again, sorry, some of this is UK centric, sorry, but that's for those that don't know, that's the basically taxes you pay on your employees. So again, you'll see a massive change from what we were paying when we just had a small team through to now, we're paying significantly more. But again, essentially what you can do, that's part of the salary. So again, whereas the salary is at the top here, you kind of think, oh, that's, not a lot for all those people, but actually, you need to plus this on as well. So that PAYE is essentially the part of tax that you're paying for your employers. So when that tax comes off that employer's payslip, it's because you as the employer are paying that for them. So essentially that salary, this should be combined with your salary when you're thinking about it. So if you're taking someone for £25,000, actually there'll be a percentage of that falls into this PAYE line. Again, you can plug that in and factor that in, but add that to your salary costs initially when you're doing your initial forecasting. Corporation tax again is another one where it's gonna flux depending on your income and expenditures, but basically in the UK that is actually, I think it's 19%. I think it was 20% before. I think it's 19% now. So that basically 19% of any profits you've made from the previous year. And that will be a cost that you have to pay in the following financial year. So again, you can start to think about that. If you've got a good sense of what you're going to take in a given year, you can have a look at your profits, and then you can factor in how much that might equate to in terms of your corporation tax costs. We've then got costs for our MS Office, email, web hosting. Now this again is a little bit of a funny one because what we've done, so we've got a little bit sporadic in how we've done this as we've taken new people on. Everyone's kind of on different, because we use 365 and we've had different web hosting over the course of time, but it kind of averages out, like you see, is about £2,000 a year. Again, there's lots of different ways of doing this, but if you have a Office 365 subscription for people, if you want people to have all the MS applications, you want to use Teams, that kind of thing, then you need to factor that in. I think it costs about £100 to £150 a year per person. And then we've obviously got an extra cost in there in terms of web hosting. We've got a couple of extra email inboxes that we pay for without the MS Office subscription bolted on. But again, with this one, it's a little bit haphazard because we've got people joining at different times. So we've got subscriptions of different lengths and things like that. Something I'm looking to do next year is on my to-do list to kind of align all that, perhaps go to an external company and get that all bundled together. So it's a bit of a cleaner cost at the moment. Again, we kind of know when things are coming in because we've kind of got those subscriptions lined up, but it is messy and it's hard to kind of track. So we'll look at kind of bundling that together. So we've got one annual cost and we know where we are with it. So yeah, if you are starting to take on a team, like I said, I probably made a bit of a mistake doing it a bit haphazard and kind of just adding people as I went. Think about it a bit more logically because it does get a bit messy, and I want to move away from our current provider, but because we've got subscriptions at all times, there's no decent point to cut off and kind of go, well, now's the time to cut off because we'll have some subscriptions running over. So if you can do that nice and cleanly, I suggest doing that. And then the next line is on course hosting. So again, we haven't hosted our own courses previously, but now we've got a subscription to host Unfolded on. So that's what that is. And again, that will probably increase over time as our course offering increases over time as well. We have software costs for Articulate and Adobe. So again, it's a little bit haphazard, and what we try and do as well, people, if they don't need an Adobe license or don't need an Articulate license, what we do is we tend to try and share it between people. So that, rather than paying for their full license, what it does mean is, with Adobe, for example, you can't both use it at the same time. So there's been a couple of occasions where, we've had to, be flexible, but for the sake of, saving yourself, hundreds of pounds, thousands of pounds, probably if you've got a bigger team, on subscriptions that you don't necessarily need, people aren't necessarily using a lot, then I would look at kind of doing that in a sensible way. Again, it does mean people sharing passwords and stuff like that, but again, if you think of it, if you do it in a proper way, then like I said, you can save yourself some money there by sharing where possible. Like I said, if we've got a graphic designer, they tend to have their own license because and actually some people have actually purchased their own license or had their own license from other things, and they've actually kept that, and we've refunded them through expenses or salary rebates. So actually that's not fully representative of our full costs. But again, hopefully you'll have a good sense of the software that you need to use and the costs that are associated with that as well. But like I said, have a think about how you can do that in a smart way where, you're not necessarily having to buy everyone a license if you don't have to. B2B, so that's our tendering site. So again, that's a subscription-based site. It's something we've done for the last 3 years. And again, I'll talk more about that when I come on to tendering and looking at opportunities. But again, that's something that we couldn't do without. So that basically gives us access to all of the, a number of tender opportunities that come up. It basically pulls through from different websites. So again, for that, as that £400 is well spent. We get more than our money's worth out of that with the work we win that's found through that website. We have memberships. So back 3 years ago, we were part of the Chamber of Commerce. We didn't really feel any benefits of that, so we left. We only did that for 1 year, realised it didn't work out, but we are still a living wage organisation, so we do pay a small subscription fee for that. We've then got home allowance loan. So this is a cost that you can claim back as an independent freelancer that you hopefully will know about. So if you using your home for any purpose, it's not something I've done over the last couple of years, just because it's I think it's only about £216. I don't know why there's that much. That seems like there's 3 years worth there, but maybe I did a reclaim from the previous. I think I may have got it back for the previous 2 years because I forgot to do it then, and I've not really done that. But it's something you can claim if you want to. It's not something I'm particularly bothered about, so I don't think that's why I've not done it the last couple of years. And then loan repayments, again, that's self-explanatory. So where we've taken a loan out, we've got the loan repayments. So we did take a loan out, a £10,000 loan out back in 2018, again, just as a bridging loan. And that was the repayment. So again, you can see we've paid back about £10,700. That was a small bit of interest on that over the course of that 12 months. And then this year, we've not made any loan repayments, although we have got the loan out, but we'll have to obviously pay that later, and that might fall into next year. We've got the company insurance. So this is I probably should have mentioned the insurance up here is things like life insurance. So we've got life insurance policy. So I've got director's life insurance policy and income protection policy as a director, something I've always had since freelancer, and I've carried on with that. Company insurance basically is our public indemnity and things like that. And again, you can see that's increased over time quite significantly as Our risk has grown for the insurance company, so obviously we're taking more money. We've got more staff, we've got higher value contracts. We're working in different countries, so again we saw a massive leap. It's a bit of a shocker, but had a massive leap between 2019 and 2020 as we took on more work and more staff. And again, that's going to carry on just increasing over time as we carry on to grow, but hopefully not in not such a drastic way. But again, that will, like I said, the £2,000 that covers us for all those things I showed you in the business plan in one of the previous videos. So that covers all of your basic insurance. We've then got life insurance and income protection. So that is covering for my personal life insurance and my personal income protection. Again, we'll probably increase that over time as we kind of look to launch out to the rest of the team. And then finally, we've got charity payments. So we've got a couple of charity payments that we're going to make this year. It's not something we normally do. We normally give time to charity, but in a couple of instances this year, for example, we've won a grant to do some work for a charity, and we've said that money we're going to donate to a charity. And we've also, one of our partners is doing a sponsored thing as well, so we put together a little bit of money. It's not something, again, we will do massive amounts of, and again, that's a decision you can make on that's something you want to do. But again, it's something that you might want to factor into your costs. So I think that's it on finances. Again, as always, any questions, give us a message, drop us a line, and we'll try and answer it. I'm happy to go into anything in more detail. I'm aware it's, I've tried to be as brief as I can and bash through everything as quickly as possible, but you may have some more questions around some of these figures and why they are the way they are. So feel free, give us a shout, and I'll be more than happy to talk to anyone. Also, please feel free to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, so you'll get notifications. And I think you need to turn your notifications on, but make sure you get your notifications for any new videos. Like I said, we'll be doing a few more. I'll have a look at doing a couple more around the businessy side of things and planning, and then we'll look at kind of other things such as marketing and tendering and winning new business and opportunities. So thanks again for listening, and we'll speak to you next time. Thank you.